Hello, you're welcome to the Under Center podcast. This is Around the League in 60-ish minutes. We are live as we are going to be now every Tuesday for you. Dara here, and I'm delighted to be joined by the Malloy brothers, Reen and Fionn. Boys, how are we?
Excellent. Thank you very much for
Nice.
having us again.
No problem. You're always so cordial there with that. Thank you for having us back on. So you're part of the team, Fionn. You're actually expected to be on now at this stage. You're not a
Yeah, I
guest
know.
anymore.
We got to do some sort of filler, right, to get us into the show. Seems like being polite is better than being rude, which is my usual go-to.
Well, I was half expecting to say you to say "all right, dickhead" or something like that, but
Well, look, a lot of things happened this week during the NFL. There was a lot of texts into the group chat, and once again, I've come out looking like a bit of a genius. So I'm feeling pretty good at the moment, and I've seen you and Al kind of bow down to my otherworldly prediction skills.
yeah, me and Al having a bit of a freak out, and Rob a bit to be fair as well, starting to have a bit of a freak out at this stage about certain things Seahawks related, which I'm sure we'll get into in a little bit. But Rain, how are you, buddy?
What's up, dickhead? I suppose is a good way to start,
There
isn't
we
it?
go. See, now if it's not one Malloy, it's definitely the fucking other one.
Yeah. Look, I'm as good as a Panthers fan can be. Yeah, look, that's going to continue for the rest of the season. I'm kind of becoming oblivious to it all at this stage. So, yeah, feeling great.
Has the anger turned into apathy now at this stage?
I think it's just turned into numbness. Total, just like where is this rudderless franchise going? It looks like we're going to be the Lions of the future because the Lions are looking good. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, look, listen. I wouldn't say the Lions. Well, the Lions are looking good, but they came up against like a bad side in the Seahawks and lost, and they came up against a quality side in the Ravens and got absolutely
Smoked.
trounced. So, let's not all book our Detroit Lions to the Super Bowl ticket just yet, maybe.
Very true. Very true.
But we'll start actually with a bit of breaking news because it's actually quite interesting because Carson Wentz is back in the league, boys. The former, where has he been so far? So he started the former Eagle / Commander / Colt. Now is joining the LA Rams. So they saw what they had in Brett Rippon last week against the Green Bay Packers. Obviously, I'm guessing this means that Matt Stafford is going to be out a lot longer than we think. So they're going to have to get someone in, and they're rolling the dice with Carson Wentz. So, Fionn, I'll start with you. Instant reaction.
Yeah, there's not a lot of value out there at the moment, this stage of the season, in terms of backup quarterbacks. We've seen that the trade deadline is over. So we saw the Cardinals make a trade to get their backup in that they wanted in Josh Dobbs. That turned out to be a good move in the end. Or sorry, did he? Yeah, no, sorry, the Vikings, apologies, got Josh Dobbs from the Cardinals. That turned out to be a good move on their behalf. I think Stafford's injury came right at the wrong time. Rippon was always going to be struggling. And I think, to be honest, why not? Wentz has played recently. There's no... Can you guys name any other big free agent quarterbacks? I mean, Cam Newton and Colin Kaepernick and these names that always go around. The reality is they haven't played football for a while now. So I think he's the most battle-ready quarterback that at least in an instant reaction type of mode jumps to my mind. So it makes logical sense. Will he turn the ship around? Maybe not. Will he be perfectly adequate? Yeah, I think he certainly gives them a better chance to win than Rippon. And if he can find a bit of form, he's definitely worth keeping long term. And he kind of gets this like no pressure scenario, right, to get himself started. That's got to be good. That's something that I believe, at least from what I've seen in both the Colts, the Eagles, the end of the Eagles and the Colts and the Commanders era, was that there was so much pressure. He didn't get the time to kind of build back his confidence. And it really felt like it was a confidence thing because we saw here and there great throws. He uses that like deliberately short, long ball on one-on-ones to great effect. It's just about getting that consistency and making them feel good, feel healthy, I think, as well, is going to be a big thing. So I actually think it's a good fit for the Rams. I think it's the best they could do. at this stage. And I think it might turn out to be a better move than some of the other teams who brought in backups at a higher cost earlier in the season.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with Fionn on this one. I think it was the best quarterback move that they could have made. Definitely an upgrade from Brett Rippon. I'd say Carson Wentz's phone was ringing off the hook this last weekend, to be honest. Like with Daniel Jones going down for the rest of the season as well, I'm sure that they made that call because now they're stuck with Tommy DeVito for the foreseeable future. I'm not sure what Tyrod Taylor's injury situation is. I know he's definitely going to miss another week, maybe two. So yeah, it's not a good situation over there. I don't think the Rams ever expected to be in this situation. I think they expected Stetson Bennett to be the long-term backup in that facility, but with his situation the way it is at the moment, they decided to roll with Brett Rippon just to see what he had. They obviously saw he is not able to deliver at this level. So Carson Wentz is a guy who has proved in the past that he is able to deliver. So I agree with you, and it's the best QB option they had available to them at the time.
Yeah, I had a quick look through the current NFL quarterback free agents, and yeah, it's bleak, boys. It's really, really bleak.
In these kind of scenarios, like experience says a lot. Like look at Heineke now at the Atlanta Falcons. Now he's got a chance to be a full-time starter for the rest of the season, and that really only came from doing an above adequate job as a backup. And I think that's something that can come in. And I think Carson Wentz should be modeling this on a low risk, high reward opportunity for him to get in, get settled. He's going to have all sorts of caveats and stars next to it saying like he's only just in the building and he's been out for half a year. And so people are going to give him a lot of leeway. And I think if he can take advantage of that and get to where his natural skill set lies early and get comfortable, because there's some nice wide receivers still on that roster. So there's certainly plenty of talent that he can use. Maybe he can use it as a stepping stone to be either a permanent backup or maybe even a starter at some of these more quarterback starved teams around the league.
My one concern with the whole situation is that Carson Wentz in the past has been a bit of a gunslinger, bit of a go deep or don't go at all kind of quarterback. And that's not really the way the Rams have been set up to work. They have two guys who are very good at short to intermediate routes in Puka Nacua and in Cooper Kupp. So, yeah, I'd be interested to see how that dynamic will work with this gunslinger versus these guys who are very good in the middle, kind of in shorter, medium routes. It'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, look, Rin nailed it. It's going to be get the ball out of your hand quick. And Dobbs showed that for the Vikings. Even if you're not necessarily 100% sure where your man is going, get it out early. Give your offensive line a bit of a break. They don't know where your strengths lie. Just become, and that ties into a confidence game, right? If you feel like your arm is there, your timing is there, at least in part, and your instincts are there, which he may or may not, I think that can be a make or break area for Carson Wentz coming into this squad.
I guess it all depends on the Rams' mindset for the rest of the year, though, as well. Like, what do they want for the rest of the season? Or do they want to just try and get back above 500? I think I guess we could reasonably say playoffs are not going to happen for them this year. Yeah, is it just about getting through this season and then either going back to Matt Stafford, which I don't think is going to be a good idea because this is 2 seasons in a row now where he's going to miss a lot of time. I think maybe it's time to look at the draft if they can get a decent draft position. Do they actually have one of their first round picks now this year, or did they get rid of one of them? Because they haven't had a first round pick in a long time at this rate. Just due more down to, I think, what was it, the Jalen Ramsey trade? Was it the Von Miller trade as well that cost him a couple, or was that a couple of second rounders? I think that was when you were getting him from Denver. But yeah, whether they look at a quarterback in the draft, or whether they look at free agency, or if they do have the draft capital, go and draft for a quarterback will remain to be seen. But it'll be interesting. Speaking of quarterbacks that are out, you mentioned it. Let's talk about Daniel Jones. ACL done for the season. I think he tried to play 2 more snaps after initially injuring it, and then went down. Which kind of puts the cherry on top of the shit cake that is the New York Giants season. It's been injuries, poor results, more injuries, more poor results. Rain, I know me and you talked in the group chat over the weekend about Brian Daboll's position as head coach when it comes to the New York Giants. But another sort of awful note in what has been a really, really rough season to be a Giants fan.
Yeah, it's been terrible. I've actually gotten to watch a few New York games this year, more so than I would in previous years. And they've been god awful, man. The drop off between last year and this year has just been incredible because they haven't really lost talent, particularly on that offensive side of the ball. They should realistically be a better offense with a healthy, I know he's missed a couple of games, but a healthy Saquon Barkley. They brought in a couple of guys in the draft at wide receiver position. Jalen Hyatt was meant to be the next star in the building. And of course, they brought in the tight end whose name has just left my head, Darren Waller. Yeah,
also injured.
To boost that, right, he's on IR as well now. So yeah, look, if it wasn't for all of these injuries, I think it would be an absolutely open and shut case. Dable would have been fired by now to give the next guy up a chance. But because of all of those injuries, I think you're right, Dara. I think he does get to the end of the season and then into the season after to see whether he is the coach everybody thinks he is.
The number one priority has to be keeping Saquon Barkley healthy, right? He was out a long time last year. Let's take the rest of this season. Let's be careful with our pitch counts, be careful with our play calls. Use it as a tune-up season. Get him back into full confidence because from the little I've seen it, he hasn't managed that explosivity of any given play is going to the house. He's had top-notch moments as he deserves as a top running back in the league still, but that same kind of burst and explosiveness I haven't really seen. So I think they're really going to have to focus on getting him tuned back up in as best as they can. And that's a big risk, obviously, at a running back position. Your kind of injuries always looming right there. But if they can take this for the rest of the year, sort out the offensive line a little bit, don't do anything too dramatic in the run game, but make sure he gets his carries, feels healthy, feels strong, and then reset and rebuild into next season.
Was it a 1-year contract he signed, or did he get his multi-year deal?
I think he only got 1 year.
Yeah, because we were commenting on the time that he signed it for less than what the franchise tag would have been had they tagged him. I think the franchise tag would have been 11, and he only signed for 10.
Yeah, he signed a 1-year, $10 million contract. So look, that he could easily say, and maybe encourage him to just say at the end of the season, say, boys, I'm out. Like this isn't working. Thanks for the last 6 years. Really enjoyed my time. I know we're kind of in a weird place for running backs at the moment, but I think someone like Saquon Barkley would find a home pretty easily. Whether that's where he'd be in a difficult position. We'll see what the ambition's like, whether it's a money motivated or success motivated, because I'm sure contenders would definitely look at Saquon Barkley as someone they want to bring in, but would not be willing or possibly able to, push the boat out financially for him. Or teams that could do that, I'm thinking like, the lower teams like a Bears, maybe a Panthers, that they can push the boat out for Barkley, but maybe aren't going to contend. Is he going to want to take the bigger money? Either decision, I don't begrudge. You're not in the league for a long time. Make your money while you can. It's totally up to him. But I would like, just selfishly, I would like to see Saquon Barkley on a Chiefs team. I think him and Mahomes together would do a lot of damage in that league, and I think that they could probably he would probably get 1-2 rings possibly with the Chiefs if he was to play with them.
I'd even like to see him
wait.
on the Bills. I think maybe a running back like Saquon might unbalance the Chiefs a little bit in terms of how their offense is set up and kind of trying to force carries into them. I think the Bills is more set up to use that ground and pound method. But I got to be honest, I agree with you. I don't see either of those teams paying like upwards of $12 million for a running back, especially when both of them, at least the Bills are getting a little bit. That's always been their knock, right? The run game. And then Isaiah Pacheco, I'm personally a big fan of, and I believe he's still on his rookie deal. So he's not getting anywhere close to 10, 12 million. So whether they'd rather bring in a guy that is going to be a half and half player, and because I think Pacheco is good enough and dynamic enough to take at least some reps off Saquon during the season. So yeah, I agree with you. I think it's two scenarios, right? You take your pay cut and go to a contender, or you get your money and then you've really just gone to the Giants 2.0 and you're going to get 30, 40 carries a game and get hammered and just try and get out there with as much money as you can and get as many seasons in as you can.
Yeah. Just with that, with the Chiefs, though, the reason why I like the look of Saquon with Mahomes more was because Mahomes, if his primary target in Kelsey isn't available, the amount of balls that he gives to the running back in the flat or, in a designed route for the running back, I think of just how much Jerick McKinnon has become a force in that offense because he can catch the ball out of the backfield. Saquon doing that, I think, could be very dangerous for that AFC.
And he can. In fairness, he can. But my worry is that if you have a guy who runs the ball like Saquon, you get that temptation there to give him the ball 20 times, whereas when you've got Pacheco and McKinnon in there, sure, they can run the ball, but you don't feel obliged to make sure that they get the touches that they feel like they're in the game so that they might rip a big one off. Does that make sense? At least that's where my head's at.
Yeah, but you see, I think you can use Saquon in that McKinnon role, but it really opens up the offense much, much more, right? So when McKinnon comes in, it becomes a 70% possibility that it's going to be a pass, probably closer to 80% that it's going to be a pass, because Jerick McKinnon can't do it through the tackles, not to the same extent that Isaiah Pacheco can. Saquon Barkley can. So now if Barkley comes into the game, you know nothing about the play. It could be a run up the middle, it could be a run to the outside, it could be a pass play. He brings that extra dynamic, and then Pacheco then becomes the power back, the short down back, all of that sort of thing, and he can take carries off Saquon. Anybody who gets Saquon is going to give him the ball 20 times a game, and they would be stupid not to. That's the type of player that he is. It's how many carries you can take off him. How many can you come away from 30 or 40 carries a game, like what the Carolina Panthers were doing with Christian McCaffrey when he was there. We see now him out there in San Francisco, he's getting less carries, but his production has gone up. So that's the kind of role I would see him with in the Chiefs. Now, obviously, as Dara said, there are money implications there. I don't think they can afford him, even if he was to take a pay cut. But yeah, look, weirder things have happened.
Yeah, totally. Speaking of shit sides, I left it go long enough. So I knew you were going to try and come in with that, Fionn. I knew you were going to try and come in. That's why I had to get in just there ahead of you.
I was actually going to have a dig at Rian. Rian, have you heard that the Carolina Panthers have signed famous forger and Pokemon stealer Blake Martinez as your new practice squad linebacker? Apparently, he's been. I only just read this just as we switched the camera on. He's been kicked off. He retired to do his side hustle of like selling rare Pokemon cards. Well, allegedly, he's been banned off the selling site that he has for defrauding some of his customers. So maybe not all those rare Charizards he was pulling weren't rare enough. Should have had. I hope he had a card made up of the sphincter catch. I think that would be a 1 of 1. Who is it that does the American football cards? Prism or something like that. It's just do like a 1 of 1 sphincter catch with like the little square from the ass like cut out right between the cheeks and like one of the fabric cards. holographic
Take
where
the
the
bit of the
ball like
jersey. It's a bit of his
holographic
pants
where the
just
ball
put in.
goes into the ass cheeks and out of the ass cheeks depending on which way you tilt it. That I'm telling you
Okay.
now, Prism, hook us up with a 1-of-1. That'd be great.
Good throwback there, Fionn. Honestly, I hadn't heard about Blake Martinez signing with the Carolina Panthers, but I mean, look, they're in a bad situation in that linebacker room. Shaq Thompson obviously has been injured this entire time. They just don't have the depth there, basically. Frankie Louvu is playing out of his skin, but you can't rely on him to do it all. So they do need a bit of backup there. I can see Blake Martinez getting activated to the 53-man roster once he gets up to fitness. And yeah, he might be able to provide a bit of support. I don't think he's going to be the starter out there, particularly at his age and his time spent out of football. So yeah, we'll see.
Let's ask about Bryce Young then while we're talking about the Panthers. I was going to wait till later on. Struggling a little bit. Well, the team in general, let's be honest, is struggling a little bit. He doesn't help where he's throwing footballs to Stephen Sullivan, who I remember was put on the Seahawks practice squad at one stage, like a couple of years ago. It's the only reason why I wouldn't have known him otherwise. Does it make it worse seeing what Bryce Young is struggling with at the moment and then looking at the AFC and seeing the Texans and what CJ Stroud did on Sunday and thinking, we could have had him?
Yeah, 100%. It makes it so much worse. Like, I'm pretty sure CJ Stroud still hasn't thrown a pick all year. Like, that's
Oh, he
insane. Bryce
has.
Young,
Yeah, he has. He has.
he
I think he's
did?
thrown two. I think he's thrown two.
Okay, well, still, look, that's
I'll
good.
double check, but go ahead.
Bryce Young threw 2 pick sixes in that game, one of which is on a screen. An AFI2 quarterback, know to either put it in your running back's hands or put it on the turf. Do not give the opposition a chance to catch a screen. But that being said, I don't even know where I was going with that, but there's no but there. It's just bad. Everybody has been talking, particularly Carolina Panthers fans have been talking about how composed Bryce Young looks in the pocket. But if you look at the stats, what boils down is he has a quarterback rating of 29.5 this season, lowest in the league of all 40 quarterbacks who have started the game this year. That's really not acceptable. Now, I think part of it is pretty cultural because if you look back historically, you have Baker Mayfield, who was last in QBR in the league last year. And then before that, Sam Darnold. Guess what? Last in QBR in the league amongst the starting quarterbacks. The O-line needs to be fixed. There were times where the Colts were rushing 4 and getting 4 to the quarterback. That's not ever a situation that should be there. But Bryce Young needs to start making better decisions in the pocket. Too many picks this year. I am starting to worry. I was worried before we drafted him, but I am starting to worry now properly that he is not going to be the guy. And next year or the year after, we're going to have to start looking at quarterbacks again.
Yeah, CJ Stroud has thrown just the one pick this year.
Yeah, against the Saints.
Yeah, but I did say I was kind of half watching, the game on Sunday. I was still trying to process what happened during the 6 o'clock games. But yeah, that screen pick 6 was just an awful throw. Such a bad throw. And look, I know question marks were brought up about his height before, but it was a screen. It was a clear avenue. It was an open throw. It was not going to. It was not. It's not a height related miscue. It was just a terrible throw. And it was. Although I did think it was pretty cool that he did give Kenny Moore 2 nice pick sixes when his family were in the stands. So at least he's a giver.
He is definitely a giver. Oh man, it was really bad. I looked at it. I was like, right, he had a couple of good, decent games through the middle, but his first game was a stinker for the Panthers. His last game was a stinker for the Panthers. And when you look at it in just pure statistics, that's over 20% of the games he's played all season have been abysmal. So He just needs to start making better decisions. I know a lot of people in the Panthers are talking now about Peyton Manning and how he threw so many picks in his rookie year. Bryce Young is not Peyton Manning. I can tell you that right now. He is not Peyton Manning.
Also,
Yeah,
those Panthers aren't those Colts either.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. They're not
Much,
just a
much
quarterback
worse.
away from, you know, making it into the playoffs and making it for a Super Bowl appearance. Yeah, it's pretty rough. Although CJ Stroud is playing some phenomenal ball. That game against the Buccaneers was absolutely insane. You think the Bucks with 46 seconds left have won it with a K-Dot and touchdown, and then just some fantastic throws from CJ Stroud. Continued, like, how many was it, over 400 yards he had in that game?
Yeah,
And
it's the rookie record
touchdown,
for yardage. Yeah.
5 touchdown passes as well. One of my fantasy teams had a great weekend because I actually swapped him out for Gino as my starting quarterback. Best decision I've ever made in fantasy football. Best. I don't think I'll ever top that.
I think we're missing though out about the star of that game, which is Ogumbawale kicking that field goal. He's a
Yeah.
running back. That is
Yeah.
unbelievable. Such a pressure kick, and he just nailed it. It was unbelievable.
I've never
Well,
seen
look,
a man hit
whoever
it so
tells
hard
you,
but kick it so awkwardly as well. Like,
well,
Yeah,
because
hitting
he
and
them
toe
so
poked
touchbacks
it.
goofy.
and
He
didn't know
toe
what he was
poked it.
doing.
Don't ever listen to anyone that tells you don't toe poke the football. It works.
Yeah.
Do it. If you need
Yeah.
to do it, do it.
His run up though, he looked like a toddler or something trying to kick a football. I mean, I know we're
It's
kind of
funny.
privileged in Ireland with growing up with soccer and GAA as part of our thing. We're all used to using our feet, but these American guys just have no clue how to
It
kick
is
anything.
it is very funny to see the most ridiculous athletes maybe you might ever see in your life then try and use their
Looks
feet,
so
which they can like
uncoordinated.
toe drag in the corner while their head is upside down and the ball is in their sphincter. But yeah, put the ball on the ground without moving and ask them to kick it, and all of a sudden they've no idea what to do with themselves.
Yeah, insane. Insane that game. And fair play to the Texans and D'Amico Ryans. It's good to see that he's doing a good job there for sure. Okay, let's talk about the other shit team. Fionn gets his few minutes here now. Seahawks 37-3 against the Ravens. Just an awful game from start to finish. Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, look, the Ravens are a very good defense. There's plenty of teams that are going to struggle against them, and they were kind of left hanging around. Like the first quarter didn't go too badly, and then the 17 points in the second quarter kind of ended the game there at that point. But one thing I will say is, as much as I'd like to slag it, I did think it was unreasonable to expect Gino to get like the perfect season that he had last season and keep that productivity going. I think there's plenty of things to still be positive about in terms of I wouldn't be looking to bench him or anything like that. And I'm not going as far as to say, like I did with Wilson, that there's a cliff coming or anything. It's just a plateau, right? It's just a plateau. And once you hit a plateau, then the kind of the rub of the green, the confidence just slows down a little bit. And so you get a little bit more stinkers than you did the season before. So, but what is worrying me is, and we had this conversation last week when I was trying to convince you that this was coming for the Seahawks, is they bounce back. I believe Commanders is the next game. I would fancy them in that game. But then they've got Niners, Cowboys, Niners, Eagles, and somebody else, I think, is their next.
You're missing a Rams game away after the Commanders.
Yeah, sorry.
Game.
So you've got Commanders,
then you
Rams,
get in
and then there's that stretch. Yeah. So I think getting the confidence back quickly is going to be a big thing. And again, let's not overstate the lack of DK Metcalf. And was he playing in the last game? But I know he's kind of been in and out with injury. Was he playing?
Yeah, he played. He played on Sunday. He actually had the
50. Yeah, he only had one catch.
one catch for 50 yards. Did he play the week before?
I think he was out the week before.
No, he played the week before against the Browns. He missed the week before that. That's the game that he missed. I can't remember who that was against.
I think
Yeah.
the weird thing for me
Oh, it
there
was the
is
Cardinals.
the weird thing. I'm just kind of looking at this right now, so forgive me if it's wrong, but like
Mhm.
I'm not seeing. I see Will Disley there and Noah Fant, no targets whatsoever. Like that's quite
Yeah.
strange for a Seahawks team. Is that a trend this season that Gino's moving away from the tight ends, or you just haven't had the
I
production?
don't know. I don't know if it's Gino or I don't know if it's the play calling by Shane Waldron. At the start of the year, they were involving their tight ends. As the season has gone on, we've seen less and less targets to their tight ends. Where I don't know why they're moving away from it. It is concerning, especially if you're playing Will Disley. Like he's 9 million against the cap this season, and he's basically coming in just as an extra blocker. He's not a catching tight end. He can catch the ball, but he's just not in these plays. A bigger concern for me is the fact that the Seahawks have not been able to run the ball the last couple of weeks. Ken Walker has, despite bunch plays here and there, I think they are padding his stats at the moment. He's not getting decent yardage from most runs. Zach Charbonnet is not in the game enough, I think, to influence games. So I think the running game has to be fixed. It has to be sorted out. A lot of talk has been that they are still missing parts of their O line. They missed their right tackle, and I think that was it. The right tackle, Abe Lucas, was the only person from the offensive line missing on Sunday, and they were still trampled all over. They didn't have one answer for any question that the Ravens threw at them, and that was concerning.
I think the run game is the thing that stands out for me, though, Dara.
Yeah,
Stopping,
it's
but on
and
the
the Seahawks.
defensive side of the ball, like stopping the run.
Well, they started the
They
season
have been
quite well,
better. They
stopping
have
the
been
run.
better.
Yeah, but the last 3 games, especially, they have let teams run all over them, and obviously Sunday was a nightmare. I think it was 297 yards total rushing.
Keaton Mitchell came in. You probably never heard of him. He comes out of East Carolina, I believe. I think this is the first.
He had an exceptional game, though.
He came in as mop-up duty. He had 9 carries, 138 yards, and a touchdown.
That's Madden stats. That is. That shouldn't be real.
Unfortunately, Dara, that goes on top of Gus Edwards and Justice Hill going for 92 yards combined, which would then be okay, except Lamar added another 60 on top of that. So he got right up close to about 300 yards of rushing, which is always difficult.
And they took their foot off the gas in the fourth quarter as well. They could have made it worse. They could have made it a whole lot worse.
Huntley came in the game and threw a touchdown to the octogenarian OBJ.
Yeah,
that's bad.
No, well, see, that's the thing, and I made jokes in the group chat on Sunday saying that the offense is playing worse than us Pirates did last season, and I still don't believe I'm too far off of that in terms of they had 6 first downs total in the game last year or last week. But the problem with them is that because they only had 6 first downs, they were coming off the field. They didn't have a good time of possession. The defense was on that field for way too long, and it just showed that they were just beaten down, especially against a running team like the Ravens, where it can be the quarterback, it can be now any 3 running backs can run the ball in the Ravens offense, and that's just going to kill you. And that's going to have to be sorted out. Like I said, Gino, 8 turnovers in his last 4 games. He's giving at least 2 turnovers a game. It should have actually been 3 because he should have been picked off by Kyle Hampton for a pick 6, which he dropped, and then he had to do push-ups on the sideline after it because he dropped it. That's going to have to get fixed. I'm not calling for Gino to be dropped. I'm not calling for Drew Lock to come in because there's obviously a reason why Drew Lock is not starting above Gino. So we're just gonna have to. He needs to. He comes into these press conferences after games saying it's my fault. It's my fault. It's my fault. So, okay, after a certain amount of weeks, we know it's your fault, Gino. Fix it.
Do something about
Don't
it.
just
Yeah.
keep saying it's my fault. We know it's your fault. But if you keep saying it's your fault and you're not doing the things to fix it, well, then you won't have to say it's not your fault anymore because you won't be getting started anymore. So
I think what ramps up the pressure a little bit, Dara, is as well when you lose from so far behind, or it's such a big deflating loss. Is like, even in the standings, you're tied with the 49ers at the moment at 5-3. Like, it should be very positive, and you're hoping to go. And that's why I said maybe these two games against Commanders and Rams are going to be huge, because if you can steal a win here and there, like 2 of those games are against the 49ers. If you can split that, and then try and pick up some a win against either the Cowboys or the Eagles, that can be huge.
Yeah.
So
well, that's
it's weird to be so
games.
down and to be so like,
Yeah,
God, we're so far off the pace this season when you're kind of tied first in the division.
I think it's because the Seahawks had the 31st, I think, easiest schedule to start the season with, and they have the second hardest schedule to finish the season with. So amongst Seahawks fans and stuff, we kind of all knew that the start of the season, it's important to pick up the wins and get a lot of wins early, because we're not sure about the back end of that season and what we can do. Like you mentioned, playing the 49ers twice in the matter of 2 weeks, with the Cowboys in between, the Eagles after that. They still have to go to Tennessee and face the Titans as well. They still have to play Pittsburgh, although, like, I know you're saying, oh, it's only Pittsburgh, but they're still getting results from somewhere. Their defense is still very tough. TJ Watt is going to have a field day coming up against Geno if that offensive line can't get their shit together. You know, there's a lot of tough games coming soon. And that's why, like that, if they can get to 7-3, that's brilliant before they get into this run of games. They say those 4 games, like I said, the 49ers twice, Cowboys, Eagles, lose them 4, you're still 7-7. That's still on track with the way the NFC is going this year. You're still on track to make the playoffs. No one expected to win the division this year, but you still want to get a playoff spot. You don't want to regress after last season's playoff appearance. So look, it like you're saying, Fionn, it can still be positive. It should still be positive, and I am still going to try and stay as positive as you can. But it's always hard after such a hard defeat. It's just these next 2 games shouldn't be as important as they feel right now. They should be that we go into these games, get these wins, move on to the harder ones. But now you're coming into these 2 games with that bit of trepidation of there's a bit more pressure on to get the results now. But look, I want to talk about one more thing before we go, and then I will open up to you guys. I mentioned it last week, and I'm kind of just want to revel in the fact that I was correct. The Dolphins are on fraud watch.
100%.
The Dolphins are on fraud watch.
So
they are this year's Vikings.
Yeah. Losing record teams, absolutely fine. We'll put 70 on them. Teams that are actually going to meet you in the playoffs, they're not having a jar of it.
Yeah, 100%. Tua looked really out of his depth in that game. Like, he strikes me as one of those quarterbacks now who, like you said, can throw all over teams who don't have their shit put together. But when you come up against a competent defense, he seems to be lost at sea, right? There was a couple of instances in that game where he missed open receivers. The 2 that stand out to me are the last 2 plays of the game, right? So when his receiver got wide open and some miscommunication, I'm going to put it on Tua because, he's a wide open receiver. Just throw it to where he is. So yeah, incompletion there. 4th down, can't handle the snap and just dives on the football. He knows that surely he knows that the game is at stake at that point, that he cannot just take a sack in that situation. He needs to pick it up. He needs to make a play out of it. And so what if it goes dead? The result is still the same, but at least you've given yourself a chance. And there was a few points during that game, but those are the 2 most memorable ones that show me that Tua is maybe not the elite quarterback that some people think he is.
Yeah, I think it's got to be on the game plan. Like, do you know what I mean? He's got to feel comfortable with where they're going. He's got to feel the rhythm of the game plan. Don't know if he yet has the confidence to kind of ad lib and really push the ball when it needs to be pushed in terms of forcing it in there. I think the luxury of the offense that they've built is that there is plenty of weapons, there's plenty of speed. And so quite often they're playing with a lead. And at that point, you get to dictate and take most of the time what's open, or at least a check down feels like it's as much of a gain as any other play. Whereas when you're maybe behind or you're trying to push that ball in the last 2 minutes or keep the game alive, the check down feels cheap. And so you kind of stay away from it, and it really puts the quarterbacks under a lot more pressure that way to make the right call. And as Rian said, at the moment, he's not making those calls. And Darren, I'd have to agree with you that the team in general needs to be put on fraud watch, because let's be honest, there's the other side of the ball that have been also very effective at when they are hammering these teams, keeping those teams to really low scores. But that hasn't been the case when they've played top winning sides. They haven't been able to keep the ball away from their own end zone. And ultimately, as they say, lads, that's the most obvious thing in sports, right? To win, you got to score more than the other team. So clearly, also on the defensive side of the ball, they're letting it in and being maybe a little bit too soft. So I think that's two areas of concern that you really need to focus on the Dolphins. I don't think that's particularly in-depth analysis by any stretch of the imagination, but I mean, it's stating the obvious when they, as the coach said in his press conference, he said, if you don't like the narrative, you need to change the narrative. And that's what it is. The narrative is they can't win and haven't won against winning sides. And so they need to find somewhere, they need to earmark the next winning side they're playing against and make sure they come out and look extra impressive if they want to increase not only obviously the media side of things, but I think the confidence within the camp as well, because that is obviously affecting Tua a little bit when it comes to these crunch time games, in games against top-notch opponents that he's really trying to win and has to force himself to win.
Mm-hmm. Did you happen to see the picture of Tua during the week before the game in Germany? Because we all see Tua as kind of one of the smaller quarterbacks in the league. I think we'd all agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
He was pictured with Ireland rugby centre Bundy Aki in Germany during the week. He's bigger than Bundy Aki. That's
a big man. In real life, these lads are big men.
There's very few quarterbacks in the league who are less than 220 pounds, and that's 100 kilos. That's a big dude.
Not even that, just height-wise as well.
Yeah.
Because Bundy we don't think is a small guy here. Bundy's a big lad himself.
He did get his spot on the All Blacks taken off him because of how small he was for a centre, but still, he's a big guy.
Yeah, he's big enough anyway. But I got the vibes of, years ago watching Peter Stringer, and then you have, like John Hayes, Paul O'Connell beside him in the lineup singing on the vein, and then boom, right down. It's like your stocks going down on a bad week down to Peter Stringer. But then if you were to see him out in town, or if you see him out one side, you'd look at him and say, that's a tall boy. That's still a big boy. I was just shocked by that. I was just shocked by that. I guess there's one thing we actually didn't talk about while we have 5 minutes free, and that's the absolute I guess you could say soap wordy sort of stuff that's going on with the Raiders this last week. They finally got rid of Josh McDaniels and the GM, and they benched Jimmy Garoppolo. And then suddenly the Raiders play football and win a game against. Now let's be honest, you won a game against the Giants, who
maybe that's Daniel what they were celebrating in the locker room. The fact that Garoppolo's benched and not the win.
Did you see? See, I said it in the group chat as well. That I thought it was a bit embarrassing how much they were celebrating, like smoking cigars and everything like that after the game against the Giants, after the season they've had. But they gave out even the Raiders social media put out the video of them, doing their game balls. And the game balls happened to be for the interim head coach, the interim GM, and the new starting quarterback. We got the 3 game balls So how much did they hate what was going on in the current regime to actually then have this sense of freedom once those three guys were removed from their positions?
Well, I heard a good story that apparently McDaniels likes to dress up for Halloween and that he dressed up as Davis. And Davis sent them his famous lunch that he gets, and then they had it. And then he got him a fortune cookie. And when he told him to eat the fortune cookie, inside it just said, "You're fired." And your man started laughing. And Davis said, "No, no, no. That's from me. You're out of here." Apparently, that's how he delivered the news to him.
Somehow I
which
doubt that's true, because that's
With a
like,
man with a haircut like that, Ryan, anything could be true.
he's
I know,
right.
but that's
He's
a
right.
herassment lawsuit right there. Like, you can't be doing that.
That's bullying.
Well, he was just reading his fortune because he knew he was getting sacked in the future. It was a very near future, but he was getting sacked. Although the other story, did you hear of? What is it? Is it what's the interim head coach's name? Shoot, it's Pierce, isn't it? Is his name? Is it Alex Pierce? No, that's the wide receiver.
No.
Anyway, we know who it is. But he played for the Giants, and played for those Giants Super Bowl winning teams. And I think there was a meeting, like a team meeting that Josh McDaniels, opened up to everybody, sort of a kumbaya sort of, let's sort out our difficulties sort of session. And they talked about what issues that they were having, and they were letting Daniels have a go at it. But I think then Pierce comes and talks then about how nobody believed in his Giants, and his Giants came back and beat the unbeaten Patriots, of which McDaniels was coaching at the time. McDaniels then pulled him aside and told him, "Don't ever talk about the Patriots again." So like it's
Fucking weird, man. Like,
it's such a messed up situation, and I think we can officially close the book on Josh McDaniels ever getting a head coaching gig ever again, but reopen the book of Josh McDaniels being offensive coordinator of the Patriots in the near future if Bill Belichick is indeed still the head coach next season.
they'll probably bring him in as like punting coach or something. They always do that. Like, fucking, what's his name? Matt Patricia came back as like I don't know, defensive fucking
Consultant.
assistant.
That's what it was.
So strange.
I think my odds-on favorite for the next Raiders head coach has to be Nathaniel Hackett. That would be the most perfect Raiders move to go from Josh McDaniels to Nathaniel Hackett.
I feel he's going to go college. I don't know why, but Lincoln Riley is a name that I think that they're going to go for. Although
I can point to 100 different names that did not work out of college.
I know. Look, we can go to the most recent past and talk about Urban Meyer.
Matt Rule was even more recent than that. Like,
there you go. But Fionn, actually, this is one thing about the Commanders. Did you see the reports last week of them potentially trading a pick to try and hire Bill Belichick in the offseason?
I didn't. I don't see the point of doing that. I don't think Bill Belichick just flat out is going to be coaching that much longer, to be honest with you. Like, at some point, he's going to retire. I mean, we've definitely done worse with draft picks that we've made our own decisions on. So surely I wouldn't be too concerned about that. I just don't think that's a real story. I don't think that's going to materialize. Not even that I don't think
with the enemy in the building like that, it would make it even weirder.
Yeah.
Well, I hope we do sign the enemy, because I think the classic thing, if you look at all those offensive coaches that the Commanders have had, and not one of them has been the head coach of the Commanders, but several of them have won Super Bowls as head coaches of the other teams. Now, granted, at a certain point, right, that's what coaches do. They move around, especially at that level. But I could easily see the Raiders coming in and taking the enemy right out from underneath the Commanders, just because they weren't ready to put him in place straight away. So, look, that's certainly a concern. It's weirder things have happened in that building as well, to let seemingly obvious decisions go undone and then kind of get the legs chopped out from under us with things that in theory you can't control, but at the same time you probably could have mitigated against a little bit in the but with a bit of preparation. So yeah, I don't hold my breath on either of those. That's not to say either that Belichick is nailed into the Patriots. I think at this point he would move from the Patriots, but I don't think Commanders are in a position to get him, and I don't think even if they were that would be the top name on their list.
Well, new ownership wanting to make a splash. I don't think there's a bigger splash than going after probably the greatest head coach in the game.
A big splash is a new running back, I think, that doesn't drop the ball on the ground half as often as our running backs seem to like to do. But yeah, I think Bill Belichick, that's maybe actually in the grand scheme of things quite a small splash. I don't know if, as we pointed out several times since Tom Brady left, seemed to be that the dynasty was mostly thanks to Tom Brady and not entirely thanks to Bill Belichick.
You can't rule out the murderous tight ends either. They were pretty exceptional.
Certainly helps when your tight ends are allowed to do illegal things.
I don't think they were allowed to do illegal things, but they did illegal things.
I think Day is a little bit harsh. I think Gronk is pretty within the law.
Gronk is just can just be a bit of a dope sometimes. That's all. He's not actually done anything bad. Apart from, I think, what was it when he targeted that Bills player who was on the ground? He tried to just elbow smash him. A couple of it's like second last season or something like that. But by that stage, I don't think he gave a shit anymore.
Yeah, there was the Miami Miracle as well, which wasn't illegal. It was just really bad on his part. The tackling.
That can't be his fault. You're having Gronk as like a deep safety. When it's going to be, what do they call it? The pitchy woo woos. All you had to do was just like that, get the angle on him that you can outpace him because he doesn't have the legs for it. But look, listen, that's the way it is. Anyway, unless you two have anything you want to discuss before we wrap up, we can finish here.
No, that's a pretty good dive around the league, I think.
Yeah. Excellent stuff. So that is where we're going to wrap up this edition of the show. If you haven't already and you're watching us on YouTube, like this video and subscribe to the channel. Be kept up to date with all the latest shows. Like I said, we are going live every Tuesday from 7:30 for an hour to chat about all things going on around the league. Not the normal probably review and analysis that you're used to, but more the better side of it where we actually don't mind what we talk about and we're not looking to keep everyone happy because we're all just upset team supporters at the moment because all of our teams aren't doing great. Well, few on your team's doing all right. They had a win. So
yeah, I mean, compared to the last few seasons, 4 and 5 is acceptable.
I'd argue my team is doing as expected.
Well, okay, so
slightly above, they have one win. Green was expecting them to have none. Although he did predict a 7-game unbeaten streak coming in hot. So,
yeah, could still happen. Once we get to week 11 or 12, when we know that's officially not going to happen, then we can start giving them shit for it. But until while it's still technically on the table, I guess we got to let them have it. Follow us on the social channels at UnderCenterPod on Instagram and Twitter on that as well. And you can listen back to any of our shows, Under Center Podcast, wherever you get your podcast. You can listen to us on the go. But until next time, boys, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And until next time, stay safe, and we'll see you soon.